You can actually start watercolor painting for around $35, contrary to all of the advice you've been seeing here on YouTube. I'm going to tell you what the two things are you need to get going, and I'm going to deconstruct some of the other advice we've been seeing here and why I think maybe those choices are not so great. I think there's a lot of really well-meaning but possibly a little bit elitist advice going on about exactly what watercolor supplies you need to get going. So for those of you who just want to get in and get out quickly, the two things I think you need to start are a Cotman watercolor palette set. Make sure you get one with a brush inside, and I'll tell you why in a moment, because they make many, many varieties. Just make sure that you're getting one with a brush. And the second thing is just watercolor paper. I like Canson, just get the one with the spiral binding. These two things together are around $35. You don't need all the other things that I've been hearing about. A lot of the advice I'm giving you here actually was just me discovering the hard way what to do and what not to do. I would be remiss not to mention that I did actually take watercolor classes, and I really peppered my teacher, who had nothing to gain. She had obviously verbally had no Amazon affiliate links or anything like that to give me. So she just gave me her honest advice, having taught many, many watercolor students. She's also someone who teaches at what we call OCAD-U here in Toronto, Canada, which is our art university. She's a prof there. She just told me straight up, don't get the tubes, get the half pans, get something that are ready-made. It's just so easy to dip into like a sap green or a permanent rose instead of trying to mix these up yourself. I'm relatively new to starting watercolor, and I did get influenced to purchase all kinds of things that I'm realizing now, looking back, are really not the easiest to use. In fact, I think that they'll just make your watercolor journey more difficult. So I strongly suggest you listen to my reasoning about these different products, because you're gonna maybe watch other videos and feel really influenced, and hopefully you just remember what I said before you splash out all kinds of money that you may regret later. Okay, my reasoning for the Cotman travel palette is that it already comes ready to use. The minute that you get these, you can open them and you can start using them. But not only that, I see a lot of artists recommending Daniel Smith's split primary tubes. They're saying use artist grade paint. And I suppose there's nothing wrong with that advice, but you may come quickly to a point in your watercolor journey where you want to take your paints with you. Like if you get the tubes, I just don't think that you're gonna wanna spend your time mixing colors straight from the tube and figuring out how to cure it. Maybe that's just me. There's nothing wrong with this set. This is what my art teacher told me to get. Maybe not specifically, she didn't specifically mention this brand, but she said just get half pans that are already made. Like, make your life easy as a beginner. You might decide that you want to be an urban sketcher and you want to go on location with other people, and you're gonna have to find a way then to get those tubes into some sort of half pan situation. So you might have to purchase another thing, fill them up, let them dry, and use them. And while that's doable, definitely, you haven't saved any money doing that, most definitely. And then you have more buying decisions to make about what palette you're going to use, how many colors you want to bring with you. If you already have the Cotman watercolor palette, which is affordable, which I painted an entire sketchbook with before I started upgrading, I just think that that's a better use of your money and gives you more flexibility. Also, with the Cotman watercolor palette, it has little mixing palettes inside of it that you can take out. They've got these little plastic inserts that you can just mix color right into. So you need very little. All you need are these two things to get started. And why am I saying Canson, and specifically with the spiral bound style notebook? The cool thing about these spiral bound notebooks is that, at least with the Canson, it's perforated already. So if you want to just yank out a page, that's easy enough to do. Or maybe you're like me. I ended up selling a painting out of there, and it was easy enough. I had posted a picture of a robin on Instagram, and someone who I don't really know that well purchased it from me because she loves birds. It's easy enough to just take that page out and send it on its way, or maybe you just want to take one out and you want to tape it down. It just gives you a lot of flexibility. It also allows you to, and I never see this addressed, allows you to really easily work on two pages at once. You have one side and then another side, so you can get two paintings on the go at once, which I think is a lot of fun when you're just beginning and you're maybe impatient for one to dry. The issue with a lot of the Arches and Baohong cotton, 100% cotton blocks and pads that people are recommending here is that, yes, while the paper is definitely better, when you're a beginner, you're not, I don't think, gonna really notice the difference. But not just that, they're blocks, so you can really only work on one thing at a time unless you want to take that piece of paper off, and you've got this loose piece of paper. But generally you just work at one painting at a time when you're using a block, because the point of the block, the reason you're spending a bit more extra money, is that it's glued on all the sides and you're supposed to paint, let it dry, and then take it off so that the paper stays nice and flat. And not only that, then you have all these loose pages, and maybe that's what you want, but I think it's nice just to have a beginner journal. And once you get 3/4 of the way through that journal, then by all means, go ahead and upgrade to the cotton paper. But it would just be a shame to spend all this extra money on premium materials when you don't know maybe that this is the thing you totally want to get into. Who wants to sink $100 into a hobby and then 1 month later think, I didn't really have time to do this, or just not really that drawn to it? If you get just these 2 items, the Canson XL type paper and a Cotman watercolor travel palette that comes with a little brush, you have everything you need for quite a long time. And I'd say within about a month, you'll probably know whether you want to keep going, you want to purchase more things, or it's maybe not really for you, or you'll come back to it at a later time, but at least you have the basics to get started. So I said I wanted to mention the situation with the brush inside of the Cotman palette, and I do want to address that now. I had just this tiny little brush, and I made maybe 30 paintings with it. It was completely adequate before I decided what was the style. Who did I want to learn from? What books did I want to get out from the library? Once I started to get those things out and started to understand how I wanted to progress a bit better, then I started to purchase intentionally just the brushes I need, because you're going to find quickly that if you like this particular YouTuber's style of tutorials versus that particular YouTuber's style of tutorials, they both have different brush sizes that they recommend, and that's going to frustrate you because you're going to buy a size 10 and then the person you like best is going to tell you, well, they only use an 8 and they never go bigger than that. And you're going to feel like, why did I buy this? So give yourself some time. There's not going to be a lot you can't make with a small size brush. And I will tell you right now, constraint, I think, is your friend when you're starting out as a watercolor beginner. Start small and build from there. But if you get the Cotman palettes, like I'm suggesting, the travel palettes, they come with all the colors you need and you can mix up nearly everything you want. And when you start to pan those and get to the bottom of maybe 2 or 3, then just buy other half pans and you can interchange. I don't know if you know this, but these pop out and you can put new ones in. So what I did was, when I was ready to upgrade, I bought a bunch of Roman Schmal paints, and I've got a very long video about that, either coming soon or already out. I'll be sure to link it up at the end of this, and you can see those professional grade, gorgeous paints. I just started to pop out the ones I either didn't really like or the ones I panned, and put the new pro grade, different brand ones in because it fits. Roman Schmal fits inside of the Cotman watercolor palette, and now I'm ready to go. If I want to paint outside, I've got everything I need in there. I don't have to go squeezing tubes out and trying to level it out with a little toothpick and get it perfect. Maybe you're into that. But a lot of us are not, and we want to just be able to pick up the paint right away. I also don't love mixing while I'm on the go. So when I'm outdoors, I want to have the paints kind of ready to go. This is the Baohong 100% cotton watercolor pad that you see everybody talking about. Like I said, this is a block, so it's taped on all these sides. Then when you make a painting, well, you can only do one painting if you want it to stay on the block. You make one painting at a time, which is not always fun when you're just beginning. And then you just have a bunch of loose paintings. 100% cotton is amazing to paint with. I don't think it's the biggest game changer as someone who's a relative beginner when you're just getting going. Certainly when I took a class, I was not given 100% watercolor paper because it is expensive, obviously. And also, if we're honest, I think not really necessary. Why not just start with a journal that's all spiral bound, so it's all your pages are together, you don't have loose pages all over the place, but you can certainly take them out, and then progress. So make the 100% cotton watercolor paper the second thing that you buy. This was the very first journal that I ever started working in. As you can see, I'm relatively new to it, and I painted all these things just with the tiny one that came, the tiny, this tiny paintbrush can do so much. There you go. It's great to have just a $10 notebook that you're not worried about ruining, so to speak. Because the thing is, when you buy watercolor paper that's $1 or more a page, you're afraid to use it, and that's the last thing you need when you're just starting out. I have 2 watercolor books from an artist, and in both of them, her name is Camilla Damsbo, and she makes tutorials here. She's a longtime watercolorist, and she suggests just using the less expensive Canson paper as well. So this is the artist I was telling you about, Camilla Damsbo, and in both of her books, she specifically says just to use Canson paper, and here she does not necessarily recommend using 100% watercolor paper. it's lovely, but it's not necessary. You don't need to start with like gallery level paper straight off the hop. You certainly can, and you can certainly level up to that, but I would suggest just making things a little easier for yourself, making things a little more portable. It's nice to be able to take these two things and be able to travel anywhere, and I don't know that you're going to do that if you buy the 100% cotton paper block. So if I were to do it all over again, and certainly the strategy I would recommend to anybody who has just never really done any amount of watercoloring, maybe has taken one workshop or something like that, and give yourself some sort of strategy. Like after a month, if you have been painting consistently every day, then you move up and you maybe purchase the other things rather than getting all these things up front. Give yourself some time, give yourself some space. You can create a lot just with these two things. And in fact, I think the constraint of having just this watercolor set and just this type of paper will actually do you good at the beginning, rather than having so many brushes to pick from and needing to mix so many different colors every single time. Because, and I haven't really heard people say this too much, it's actually not the easiest to use watercolor tube paints. It's much easier to paint out of these half pans that are already dried and ready to use. This is my well-worn palette. You can have a look here, and you'll see often that watercolorists have these dirty palettes, and you might be thinking, I'm never gonna do that, but it comes in handy just to leave it like this, because if you're painting green again, why clean this and just paint another green right on top of it? You can just go over that green, for example. This had some beautiful ready-made colors, permanent rose, gorgeous in this set, and sap green. Winsor & Newton is really known for their sap green. And if you have this, you can pop the old ones out, pop new Roman Schmal ones, who is a niche paint maker from Poland, and his stuff's amazing. I do recommend when you're stepping up to look into his paints. You can just pop in a new one, and then boom, if you want to take this to go, you can. Canson paper is completely adequate. I don't think that you would look at these and then look at some of my watercolors that were on the 100% cotton paper and think that, oh my gosh, wow, look how much better her paintings are on the cotton stuff. That's not necessarily how it works. In time, you may want to upgrade, and then I have a whole bunch of Cotmans. I have a video on all the different Cotmans I buy because I overbought. I didn't actually even need this many. So if you don't want to overbuy, go ahead and watch that next. But give yourself some time. You can level up from, the brushing here to these. You don't have to be purchased at the exact same time. Everything that I have mentioned, I will link down below in the description box, and I'll also pop it over into the comments. I have other videos geared toward beginners, so I hope you will check them out. Give this video a like and consider subscribing. Thanks so much for spending your time here with me. If I've missed anything, please do address it down below in the comments. Would love to hear from you. Make sure that you say hi. We'll see you in the next video.